Just real quick.
It's okay as long as there's not board members that need to.
Okay,
Statewide,
Alternate.
so there's,
You're okay.
state and local officials continue to recommend measures to promote
So you how many? You have to talk.
announcements of any changes to the agenda.
No, we have to vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
We have to do abstentions too.
Any abstentions? Now announcements or any changes to agenda?
I just want to thank you for chairing this chair. We had our chair is out of town. And our vice chair had an emergency obligation. And so you walked in tonight and we handed you the gavel.
Tag you in.
So
We will get through this.
thank you.
Real quick change to the agenda is we're going to introduce a couple of people that are new, and we want them to introduce themselves and just give us a real brief about themselves. So first, we're going to have Brandy Villanueva, who is the, I believe, the new area G rep.
Oh,
Come on.
all right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brandy Villanueva. I'm the new Area G Disaster Management Coordinator. So my role is to advocate and work with and collaborate the 14 South Bay cities on their hazard and emergency preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. Work really closely with the emergency managers, and our board is actually governed by the 14 city managers. So my area that I cover are all 4 hill cities along the coastline all the way to El Segundo, and then Inglewood, Hawthorne, Gardena, Lomita, and Torrance. So my 14 cities, we work really close with each other, and I'm just really happy to build partnerships with the COG and expand our preparedness and response capabilities. So thank you for having me this evening.
Thanks, Brandy.
and I would want to, I've asked Brandy to give us like quarterly reports so that we can stay more in touch with what the emergency area G is doing. And I should say the recent just 14 cities is that the city of Carson is in another area.
Correct. So they're in a different area than Area G.
Thank you, Brandy.
Look forward to seeing you. Also, now we have Sarah Patterson, and she's from SCAG.
Thank you, Chair and council members and folks on the TV. My name is Sarah Patterson. I'm not officially new to the COG. I think my first COG meeting was about 10 years ago. But you may have known me as the LA County Government Affairs representative for SCAG. I am now managing that department. So I'm the manager of government affairs now for SCAG. So when we come back, I'm going to reintroduce myself and my new role. But also to announce quite quickly, if you haven't yet already, SCAG is hosting its annual economic summit. It's Thursday, December 1st at the Sheraton Grand in downtown LA. It starts at about 8. It was a fantastic program. And the bonus is all elected officials and city managers are free. So if you're interested in attending, please let me know. Happy to share information. And it's so lovely to be here in this new building. And it just looks absolutely lovely. So thank you all and appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, consent calendar. Any items to be pulled from the consent calendar? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, move on.
I need to abstain on the meeting minutes just because I wasn't at that meeting.
Okay, Don Murdoch, thank you. Okay, so I think we're at presentations.
Yeah, I'm pleased to introduce and reintroduce Judy Mitchell. Judy is a former councilwoman in Rolling Hills Estates, a former board member, and chair of the COG. And Judy's been gone on to greater things, as many of you know. She was on the Air Quality Management District. She was on the California Air Resources Board, and now she is wandering around the house. I don't know. But the other thing she's doing, she's on the board of the Institute for Local Government. And that's an organization that has resources for cities. And so Judy asked if she could have some time to tell you about what she's doing on the board and what the Institute has to offer.
Shall I go up there?
You can.
So it's good to be back, and a lot of things have changed. You have these wonderful new offices, and it's a pleasure to come here tonight when you have your open house and I can see what's going on. As Jackie mentioned, I was trying to figure out when I was chair of the COG. And Kim and I were going over, I think it was around after 2010, maybe 2012 or so. But anyway, back in those days, the South Bay Environmental Services Center was just getting started. And today you have 20 plus employees. I couldn't believe what I was hearing when Jackie talked about all your programs. Back then we had Edison, SoCal Gas, and West Basin. We had enough money from them to kind of hobble together an environmental services program. But you've come a long way, I have to say. I'm here tonight to talk about the Institute for Local Government. I was in office for almost 20 plus years. And when I started, and those of you who are elected will remember what it was like when you started and you knew virtually nothing unless you'd already been in government in some other capacity. And over the 20 years, I took advantage of programs and educational opportunities offered by the Institute for Local Government, as well as Cal Cities. Now, the Institute is devoted to the education of local government officials. And it operates under the umbrella not only of Cal Cities, but California State Association of Counties, CSAC, and the Association of Special Districts. Those are three statewide organizations that pretty much cover every local official, whether elected or staff. And how many of you are familiar with this institution? I would think almost every government elected official is, because if you ever took an AB 1234 course, it was probably the Institute's. At the Cal Cities General Conference, the General Assembly every year, they give that course, and it's done under the auspices of the Institute. The Beacon program, many of you have had your cities recognized by a project you've submitted to the Beacon program, and that's dedicated to sustainability issues. And over the 2 years of COVID, Institute developed a lot of programs that were Zoom on webinars or Zoom platforms, and they're still doing that. And so if you have your smartphone with you, I urge you to call up ILG in your browser, and you will see there the website for ILG. And if you scroll down, this is on the home page, there's a section that says connect. And sign up right there for their newsletter, because they will then be informing you what webinars and what services are coming up for educational opportunities. The Institute offers virtual training in all the areas that local governments are interested in, as well as in-person training. And if you have a special problem in your jurisdiction, they would customize a special training program for you. So I urge you all to get connected to ILG. I was looking through this last week. There's a section here on webinars. All the webinars they've already given are there, and you can watch them for free. There's one on social media. We all know the hazards of social media for elected officials. There's one there that's very good on local taxes, budgeting, and finance, and talks about the projections for the future. So these are available to you for free, and I urge you to get acquainted with them, especially those who are new to public office. It's really important that you educate yourselves, get up to snuff on what's required ethically and legally. So anyway, thank you for the time today. And you can get in touch with me if you want more information. I will have these brochures here. I'll leave some here with Jackie because many of you are at home and you're not coming in person anymore. And for those of you who are here, I have some with me that you can pick up and take with you. Share them with your staff as well, because a lot of the programs that ILG puts on are also for staff. Thank you very much.
Okay, our next speaker is Mark Stanley, and he's the Executive Officer of the San Gabriel and Lower Los Angeles Rivers and Mountains Conservancy, which is a state agency of the California Natural Resources Agency, excuse me. And that agency is pretty new. It's from 1999. He focuses on achieving the goals of the organization, which is to preserve open space and habitat in order to provide for low impact recreation and recreational uses, wildlife habitat restoration and protection, watershed improvements within its jurisdiction. In addition to serving as the executive officer of this agency, he's the executive officer of 4 joint powers authority, including the Watershed Conservancy Authority, the Los Cerritos Wetlands Authority, and the Azusa Rivers and Mountains Conservancy, JPA. He's got a lot more on his bio, but I think what I will do is turn the microphone over to him. He is going to be giving us a virtual presentation, and I guess we have it somewhere. Okay, so you're going to be sharing your screen, Mr. Stanley. Where are you?
Second row.
Oh, there you are. Okay, I didn't see you. Okay, so thank you for coming, and it's all yours.
Okay, I'm not sure who's sharing the screen. Can you see the presentation? I can't see it virtually.
Okay, can you share it? Yeah. Oh, David, you're going to share it? Okay, we'll get the screen up.
And if needed, I can also share it on my screen.
Sure, if you have it handy, sure. I've got it. I'm just downloading it right now, but.
Asked to have this presentation because there is apparently funding for cities that you might not be aware of.
That is correct. That is correct. And I talk about that at the end of the presentation. So for all of you, stick around, pay attention to it.
Okay. And just to make sure, can everyone see this, or can someone give me a thumbs up if you can see the presentation?
We can see it.
Everyone can see it? Okay, great. Thanks for having me in your meeting tonight. I believe this is probably the first introduction to the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy. Our full name is the San Gabriel and Los Angeles Rivers and Mountains Conservancy. That name comes about because we follow the watersheds, both of those rivers. For the San Gabriel River, it's the entire river corridor from its headwaters within the San Gabriel Mountains, all the way down to Seal Beach in Orange County. And then we also follow the lower part of the Los Angeles River. That's about 19 miles below the city of Los Angeles, from Vernon down through to Long Beach. But you can also see at the top of our map that we actually stretch all the way up to Palmdale. We stretch to the west to Santa Clarita, and then we hit the San Bernardino County line on the east side of our funding area. So we cover a large portion of the San Gabriel Mountains, 68 cities within the Los Angeles, Orange County metropolitan area, because 10 of those cities are actually within Orange County. So we provide funding to both Orange and Los Angeles County. This addition was brought about through SB 1122, a bill that was carried by Senator Ben Allen. The governor has signed it into law. It will take effect January 1st, and it adds about 14% more area for us to provide funding to. So that's the watershed of the Dominguez Channel and over to Santa Catalina Island is the additional funding area. We are one of 10 state conservancies. There's 10 spread throughout this state of California. Uniquely enough, we're the only one that's in it that covers an urbanized area. I mentioned the 68 cities. No other conservancy is in a major metropolitan area. The other conservancies that you may be familiar with that's in the Los Angeles area is Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, and then the Baldwin Hills Conservancy, which also, by the way, is expanding its funding area as well on the west side of town. And then the third conservancy beyond us is the Coastal Conservancy. And many of you may be familiar with the Coastal Conservancy and its benefits that it provides. We'll go to the next slide. There's over 316 total projects that we've funded thus far. We have over 50 projects that are currently active. As I mentioned, we covered in urban area, 4.8 million residents within that urban area. 1.8 million of those are communities that are communities of need. Next slide. Our mission statement was read at the beginning, but just to summarize what our mission statement is, we're an agency that looks to protect the habitat, looks to provide additional opportunities for open space, and also low impact recreation. So that would be non-active recreation. We would help to fund trails, as you see on this map, bike trails, equestrian trails, anything that you're going to do passively within nature. We can provide funding for if it's tied to natural resources. So what that means is, if you're going to put in a playground set, if you're going to put in ball fields, that's not something that we provide funding to. It's just a passive recreation. Next slide. And we can actually start at the beginning. We can provide funding for acquisition of land. If you're looking to acquire the land for open space and habitat protection, we can also fund project development, and we can fund the implementation. And what we mean by project development is anything from the concept design. If a community has just an idea and they need to bring on consultants or special technical resources, we can help provide funding for that, all the way up to the final design of the project and the construction documents that you need to move the project forward. And then beyond that, project implementation, that's the actual construction of the project and all that's involved with the management, the contractors, all the elements that's encompassed in actually putting a project in place. You can see, the benefits of doing that. We help to restore the habitat. We provide for additional open space, a particular focus on park poor communities, the creation and expansion of our urban canopy, reducing the heat island effect, and green infrastructure that we can put throughout our communities. Next slide. So who's eligible for the funding? Well, the cities and the counties, which there are two, public agencies as well, meaning cities, joint powers authorities are also eligible for our funding, including, one of the things we don't have on here is nonprofit conservancies. They're eligible for funding. Utilities have applied for our funding. The tribal nations, mutual water companies, and nonprofit organizations all have an opportunity to receive funding from the RMC. Next slide. And let me just talk a little bit about, I'm going to use 3 examples of projects that basically cover the breadth of what we provide funding for. The first is conservation and land protection. And we listed two different projects. Notice one is 103 acres and the other one is just a half acre. So the scale of area that we provide funding to is pretty great. The fourth one on that list is actually over 500 acres, by the way. So I'm going to just run through each of these so you can get a little bit of perspective on what we provide funding for. Those dots that you saw on the map are active projects that are been completed. Some of those projects are being funded through our joint powers authorities as well. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So first starting with Clear Oaks, that's an acquisition of 103 acres within the city of Claremont. It's going to provide habitat protection for that area. It connects to other regional acquisitions that we provided within the city of Claremont, protecting really the urban interface between the city and the forest. These are projects that we're very much interested in and also helping to curb some of the development and impacts to our natural environment. We're currently negotiating with the landowner. The city is very much involved in the project as well as a nonprofit. And we were able to leverage the RMC funding against local sources of funding, as well as funding that has provided directly from its member representation in the state that covers that area as well. The next project. Number two, as I mentioned, is just a half acre. They're pocket parks. We funded a number of these small project opportunities that are within highly urbanized areas, just to provide some green space within those communities. This happens to be an acquisition. We also can provide for the concept design, as you see on the screen here, and also, providing funding for the construction in the final completion of these types of efforts. It's between $1.3, $1.6 million that we're going to invest in the acquisition of this space. That first slide, by the way, Clear Oaks was, you don't have to go back to, okay, you went back, is over $7 million to acquire that property, just to give you some perspective. Next slide. Number three, Magic Johnson Recreation Area. This is an example of how we're providing funding to capture stormwater. Also an opportunity for us to provide opportunities for infiltration of water in a big open space, the lake that's at Magic Johnson Park, as well as engage with our partner organizations that will fund the active portion of the park elements. So we do provide matching funds where we're going to provide funding to the natural elements, and then somebody else may come in and provide the funding for the ball fields, the playground sets, all the active elements. We do participate in projects that will include those elements. We just don't fund those portions of the project. As you can see, this is a $50 million investment to provide this park space. RMC provided approximately $4 million for its open space elements. Next project. This is focused on restoration again. This is the Los Cerritos wetlands. Much different than the other project that I was referring to in Magic Johnson, because that's active park area. This purpose is the opposite. This is just restoration of wetlands. We have a pristine area within the wetlands that we want to preserve. The other portions of the 500 acres that's part of this complex has actually been disturbed primarily by oil operators, in which we're purchasing or transferring. We have transfer opportunities to acquire the entire 500 acres of open space and turn that back into natural wetlands. This is a multi-year project. It involves the city of Long Beach, the city of Seal Beach, and also our coastal conservancy, which we formed a special JPA just for the restoration of Los Fritos wetlands. Next project. Urban greening and community access. Because we're in a large metropolitan area, we face a couple different issues that our other conservancies, as I mentioned, don't face. And this is a perfect example where we're providing a green buffer between a highway corridor and the neighborhood. It's a linear park that's adjacent to the 105 freeway. It stretches for about 3/4 of a mile, and it creates a lot of natural elements. As you can see, we've got community gardening, we've got shade structures, we've got natural play areas for kids, and you've got a before picture of what that space actually looked like and how we are able to restore to more natural elements and provide more green space within this neighborhood community. Next slide. This is an example of partnership opportunities with our school systems throughout the area. This is schoolyard greening. This is one of the most popular type projects that has come about. There's quite a bit of this that's going on. We've done 3 of these projects thus far where we've removed concrete and put back in green space and created a more natural environment within the school campus with a nod towards also not increasing the maintenance costs for that space by putting in native vegetation. Next slide. And just to talk about a little bit about our funding programs, I'm gonna end on these 2 slides that are coming up. This slide is for our climate resiliency grant program. We've already had the first round of applications back in August. We have a second round coming up at the end of January, which your communities would be eligible to submit applications for funding for. If we don't, sometimes we don't get a lot of applications that will fit within the mission of the RMC. We will extend that grant period if we don't get a sufficient amount and we have additional dollars that are left over. The next slide will show you all the different funding programs that we have available. Some of these programs are continuously open. We evaluate proposals on a quarterly basis, and others will have specific deadlines that we'll advertise to the public. Still available is Proposition 1 and Proposition 8 funding. Proposition 1 and Proposition 8 is bond funding, and it targeted water supply and water quality. Proposition 68, technical assistance, was a carve out of Proposition 68 funding to provide technical assistance for those communities that needed some subsidy in terms of bringing in technical resources to move projects forward. Wildfire prevention in our grant program is for wildfire resiliency. Primarily what we're looking to do is prevent wildfires and provide funding for vegetation that will prevent that. Our vegetation removal, primarily in terms of non-natives that create fuel for fires. And then the 4th program on that list is nature-based solution programs. The funding that we're currently showing on this graph is actually for 1 year. We've got additional funding that's not being displayed. But nature-based solutions are within the mission of the RMC to provide additional funding for open space and habitat protection. The one thing that I have not talked about is we actually, part of our mission is to educate the public about our natural resources as well. And that is another area that can be tapped into if you have those types of programs. Any questions on, the funding opportunities through the RMC? We look forward to, working with your communities
Yeah,
in
on
terms
that-
of what you may have.
On that last item, as far as the natural solutions, could we combine that with Measure W money for some possible, stormwater capture and cleanup items? Because
That is an excellent question, because many of our projects, we have matching funds or combined, as you said, with other funding programs. Measure W, Measure A. What are some of the other county measures? We've provided matching funds for a number of different programs that are going to include other elements within it. You also can match these funds with natural resource agency funds that come directly from the state in any water, other water associated funding.
thank you. That's great news.
Good question.
Olivia has it.
Olivia?
Thank you. Thank you for that excellent presentation. And I just want to ask you, do you help cities? You have so many different categories of funding. Do you help cities identify which category of funding they might be eligible for and help identify possibly the land areas that they might be, that they may be eligible to use?
That's another excellent question, because a number of times we will receive a proposal, and then we will help that applicant figure out which funding program will be best for their community.
I guess I wanted to ask you, I assume you're notifying every city through the city manager about the grant availability. But if you send it to the Council of Governments, we can also send it out to department heads, to city managers, to others that might be interested. We also have an infrastructure working group with public works directors that might be interested in a presentation like this.
Absolutely. We want to get the word out that this, that these funds are available for your communities. So I would love to talk with you more about how best to do that within your organizations.
Rodney?
Go ahead.
What city is the Magic Johnson Park in?
It's county.
Yeah, it's county unincorporated area.
Unincorporated, but like whereabouts is it?
District 2.
It's by Athens, West Athens area. Yeah. That's my part-time husband.
I have no clue where that is.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Anybody? That's great. No? Thank you, Mr. Stanley. We appreciate your presentation, and hopefully we get some grants out there.
Absolutely. You can always reach out to us for some assistance, or if you have any questions about what we offer in terms of funding. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, moving along, program action items.
Moving along, it's not on the agenda, but I'm pleased to announce that our audit for last year's fiscal year is ready. And we just found that out today. So it will be posted on Monday. I'll send out the link to all of the board members. And if anybody has any questions, you should get back to me. But it just got finalized today. So please watch for that on Monday. The first item on the COGS reports is going to be a fun one. It has to do with the local travel network and a selection of signage. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you a little bit about what's been going on with the local travel network. The staff met with Stephanie Wiggins from the CEO of Metro, and we talked to her about the fact that the local travel network doesn't fit anywhere. It's not active transportation because it's motorized, and active transportation is defined specifically as non-motorized, and it's not a highway and it's not a corridor, so it just doesn't fit anywhere. And so Stephanie's advice to us, which I thought was really interesting was don't try to squeeze it in. It's a round peg in a square hole. Don't try that. Try to just get it out there and see if you can create something new because it's new. So they said they would help us and they actually did. Today, Chris Pinmantel, who's the chair of our transportation committee, was part of the CoMotion conference, which is an international conference on micromobility. And he was in a half-hour fireside chat that I went to, and he did a really excellent job talking about the local travel network to get it on people's radar, just to, this is what it is. And I should say that when Aaron and David go out to the community, people are very excited about it. They understand it. It makes sense. And so we're getting really good feedback. And now what we need is we need the state agencies and others to put it in their reports to say, this is a mode, this is a strategy. Besides CoMotion, after Stephanie inspired us to look for other places to go, I contacted Joe Liu, who is the president of the Coalition for Clean Air, CEO, and he's also on the California Transportation Commission. And we briefed him and he was very excited about it. And he said, we briefed him on, I remember this very clearly, on November 1st, because he said on November 3rd, there was a joint meeting of the California Transportation Commission, the Air Resources Board, and Housing and Community Development in Riverside, and he wanted me to go to it. So I drove out to Riverside and made a presentation to them. They were very interested as well, but they didn't, and his point was they weren't going to have time, but they would invite me back, which they did. And we are now going back on December 7th for a short presentation to talk about the local travel network. They immediately realized it doesn't fit into their funding programs. It's just, and what's crazy about it is, I was thinking about this as I was driving around, it's like when we went from the horse and buggy to the car, there probably were no funding programs for the car. And so we're moving forward, and that's where we are. We need to create a space for this. So anyway, with all of that, we're trying to get it out. We're trying to go to agencies, and Aaron and David are doing a tremendous job in going to community groups throughout the South Bay. But what's on the agenda tonight is the selection of the signage. And we did get some feedback. We asked you to check with your councils. We did get feedback. The 3 signs that were designed and were in our charrette and in all of the feedback, the left-hand sign is a very, very traditional sign that meets all of the standards of signage. They all do, actually, so I shouldn't say that. The one on the right is a little bit more designing with the 3 different colored letters. And the one in the middle is sort of whimsical. They all are acceptable signs that can be on the roadway. I think it's very important to say that these signs can also have like the city name on them when they go through a city. But I want to turn this over to Aaron. Were you going to make any more of a presentation on this?
We've got Emily on.
Consultants are.
Oh, Emily. Okay. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Emily, did you want to make a presentation?
I'm actually going to turn things over to my colleague, Colin McCormick, who's on, and we'll give the presentation. Thanks, Jackie.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize this. Okay.
All good. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, my name is Colin McCormick. I'm a colleague of Emily's. I work for the company Fair and Peers. We are the COG's consultant, helping them envision and design the wayfinding system. And so I'll go ahead and share my screen here, and I'll talk you through a little bit of the creative process that we've undertaken to get to the signs that you actually see kind of they're printed out. And for those of you on the screen at home behind Rodney. All right, so let's just get right into it here. Like I said, I'll talk a little bit through kind of our process and then kind of leave you with kind of how we actually got to the signs that we're talking about today. Wayfinding, as we call it, is sort of just a fancy word for basically a system of cues that guides you through your environment, basically ways of helping you get from point A to point B. And for the local travel network, the network that we've been talking about in the South Bay here, for essentially people who are on bikes, neighborhood electric vehicles, scooters, things like that, the wayfinding on the local travel network will take 2 forms of signage, like those you see in the room there, and then also pavement markings. This discussion tonight is going to focus on the signs. And so, kind of fundamentally, wayfinding has 4 key elements to how it works. Basically, it gives you cues that help you to identify your location, reinforce that you're going on the right path, navigate to junctions that help you get through those kind of decision-making points, and then lastly, confirm that you've gotten to the place where you're trying to go. So pretty simple, but kind of sewing this all together can really help to navigate folks and to orient them to the local travel network, which is kind of the importance of why we're doing this. I mean, the local travel network, as Jackie was alluding to, is this kind of new concept. And by providing signage that can help people orient themselves to it and navigate along the local travel network, we can do our best job to kind of provide a how-to guide for traveling on the network. And then, also I'll say that the wayfinding provides this kind of unique opportunity to add a little bit of local culture, local context, and kind of give this new thing its own identity, which can be really helpful for increasing the recognition, the identity, the awareness of this thing, and also just kind of maybe co-benefits that we'll talk about later as far as some ways that we can brand this. You can see on the right side of the screen there, that's an example of a custom branded bike wayfinding sign, very similar in terms of its sort of use, but there's that kind of piece at the top, and then there's the more traditional guidance information, essentially a scaled down, really freeway sign, but sort of sized to the needs of a slower moving vehicle. This slide here gives you kind of a sense of what we were shooting for in developing this network. The goal was really to do 4 different things, which you can see there: formalizing the local travel network, with the wayfinding signage, and then some of the other markings and stuff that we mentioned, but really in focusing on wayfinding tonight, designing for all the different local travel network modes, which there's kind of a lot of folks who this network can serve here: people on bikes, neighborhood electric vehicles, e-scooters, e-bikes, kind of other personal mobility, those wheels that you can stand on that move you if you're bold enough to drive one of those. And kind of with that in mind, we're trying to design for all the different types of users. Really, the term that gets tossed around in our industry is 8 to 80 in terms of age, but really thinking through ways that we can optimize accessibility and the legibility of the information we present for users of all ages and accessibility levels. And then lastly, this idea that the South Bay is a fairly unique area. Can we incorporate some of that distinctiveness into the system that we designed such that it's a reflection of the communities that it serves? As Jackie mentioned, there are some sort of overarching parameters that we need to design within. Those are governed by the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which we will commonly refer to as the MUTCD. And you can see that it specifies certain things related to colors and fonts. And generally, the interpretation has been that that information needs to be used for the kind of information pieces of the sign. But there's also a section of the MUTCD called Community Wayfinding, which is what you can see there in that blue sign, that basically enables local jurisdictions to provide a little bit more of their own sort of identity in the signs and help use these as a tool to reinforce that local character. So that's some of the background that validates the ability to have some of the signs that you see presented in the office today. Our design process took a couple of steps here. We wanted to first, get a sense of kind of what are some of the sort of commonly held, maybe kind of design qualities of the South Bay. So we actually reviewed every jurisdiction in the COGs, sort of branding, their logos, and any existing wayfinding they had to tease out common threads in terms of colors, visual elements, things like that we could potentially reference in the design of the wayfinding approach to make it feel more South Bay. The next 2 steps were done iteratively. We basically held a couple of what we call charrettes, essentially just a way of getting different stakeholders from the various COG cities together to collaboratively design the signs. We presented an initial round of sign designs, got some feedback related to the logos. Folks wanted something that was custom, yet simple and unique and very readily identifiable, something that was MUTCD compliant when it comes to the sort of directional elements of the sign. And lastly, something that really emphasized the slow speed and zero emission nature of the local travel network. So trying to piece those pieces together in the overall branding of the signs. At the second of the 2 charrettes we had, we actually basically opened up the native design files and kind of did an on-the-fly design session where we could dial in the designs to, at least at a kind of a sketch level, get users' inputs incorporated into the designs, which we then went back and refined further into the signs that you see tonight. Not sort of stopping there in our process, though, we also wanted to poll various stakeholders to kind of gauge sentiment around the signs and help to get us to the place today where there's a direction to the board on a recommended action to approve a certain design. So I'll walk through the signs here again, one by one. For those in the room, you can see them printed out, but for those who are on the screen, this may be the first time you're really getting the signs up close and personal. The first one here, we're calling the multimodal approach, or the MUTCD compliant approach. Really, it kind of uses those standard colors, but introduces some iconography that helps to orient someone to the fact that you're on a street that's been specially designed for the different types of users here, for bikes, electric vehicles, et cetera, but generally kind of hems closely to the MUTCD style of design. The second option here is the word mark. Again, the color palette is based on that scan of existing kind of branding from jurisdictions across the South Bay, a lot of different references to blues, and then pulling in this idea of a word mark here, or just basically kind of stylized letters. Folks in the stakeholder sessions that we had felt that essentially taking that LTN identity and giving it sort of its own look and feel that was kind of more than just letters could be a very easy way to kind of brand this image into folks' minds of Local Travel Network here, while also providing for some iconography related to the modes. You'll see, again, sort of based on the comments that we got through that process, those icons are included in all the signs, so that there is that through line of this being really, a system designed for these different users. This is a design I think we iterated in the second round of the design process. There was this sort of general comment of folks wanted something that was kind of connoted slow, and that was kind of charming, I guess, really, is kind of where we're going this. So we had this idea of a turtle, but like, why not give it wheels, since it's of course something that rolls. It's on a network here. And this was kind of the final design that sort of was meant to kind of convey the brand element of the Local Travel Network here. And as you can see, actually, this third option did pretty well when we polled folks. We talked to a handful of different stakeholder groups, those people who were involved in our charrettes, the infrastructure working group, transportation committee, steering committee, and as Jackie mentioned, a handful of other folks from the kind of planning landscape in Southern California and further abroad in California. And when we talked to folks, basically everyone seemed to like the rolling turtle the best. Some of the feedback we got is that it's iconic, it's kind of cute, it's whimsical, but really more than anything, it helps to maybe give the Local Travel Network kind of its own thing that's we think fairly instantly recognizable. So it has that kind of X factor of being something that hopefully folks could kind of latch onto as kind of a cool design. I lead our company's visual communications group, and I always say, if it looks cool enough to wear on a shirt, people are probably going to like it. And that's kind of what we're striving for here, something that could maybe live or have a life beyond just what's on the sign. So that takes us to essentially what we're asking for the board tonight. And I will eventually turn this over to David to sort of walk us through the board action piece, but essentially we're asking the board to approve one of the three designs here. And then with that approval, we will have our direction to finish out the branding component of this project that we're working on, where we'll essentially produce specifications for the final sign design, including things like the color palette, the font sizes, various dimensions, sort of specifications for the icons you see on there, and then really guidance for how this can be applied in local communities, which I think has two major things to consider. The first being how this can integrate with local municipalities' branding, potentially with their own wayfinding systems, how this can fit into other wayfinding systems or be sort of part of other sign assemblies. And then also just empowering local communities with the resources they need to submit competitive funding applications for things like Measure M and other funds that might be available to actually implement the local travel network in their communities. But the fund doesn't stop just with the signs themselves. Part of this part of the goal of this, I think, really is sort of supporting a culture shift and a kind of a culture of change here around how as South Bay communities seek to, sort of help to implement climate goals and sort of change, how folks get around, encouraging and sort of showing the benefits of, kind of moving along the local travel network here, which can kind of play out in a couple of different ways. You could picture, in terms of education and engagement, The graphic you see in the bottom left there is a lawn sign. It's kind of emerged as a fairly popular way for local residents to show their support for things like slower speeds. You could imagine the kind of the turtle or one of the other brand concepts fitting into that to create a similar piece of iconography for the South Bay that could be rolled out across different educational materials. It could also kind of form a catalyst for what you see there on the screen, the second photo of like a bike bus, which could be integrated with like a walk and roll to school day, for example. Obviously branded collateral, there's sort of endless possibilities to put a logo on stickers, tote bags, shirts, whatever have you, as a way of kind of getting the word out and, allowing folks to show support for the network. And then lastly, having this flexibility in the design to where the LTN branding would not impact current local signage, and also create this opportunity to integrate with other sign programs, present some of these opportunities that we can be thinking about as the more holistic package for how wayfinding could be used as kind of a core pillar of the local travel network. So with that all said, I'll kind of finish up here with some next steps as to how this will factor into our planning process. And then with that out of the way, I'll turn it back over to David to take us through the next steps of tonight. Essentially right now where we're at is we're finalizing the wayfinding program and getting it approved for design. So once we have board direction tonight, as I mentioned, we'll go back and basically create the final set of design intent drawings that can be used to help fabricate the wayfinding signs as we move forward and closer to implementation. That will also include costs and specifications for signage, markings, and some of the other amenities that we're talking about. And lastly, equipping folks for Measure M applications, which I know that the deadline for that is fast approaching. So I guess we can do two things. I can sort of make myself available for questions if there are any. Otherwise, if there are none, I can turn it back over to David and we can go from there.
Why don't we do David first and then we can take questions?
Sure.
Okay, fantastic.
Colin actually covered most of it. Tonight, we're asking the board to approve a final design. Staff is recommending the rolling turtle based on the feedback that we've received. And we're happy to answer questions.
There's a question in the chat and it's from Jeff. And Jeff is asking, who will pay for the signs and does the cost increase with the number of colors?
So I can answer the first part. Measure M will be paying for the signs as part of the project. Colin or Emily, do you have any expertise on color?
Yeah, I can speak to that piece. Typically, the way these signs are fabricated, there's just a kind of a laminated sheet that's printed off of like a special printer. So assuming that you're using standard colors, which these signs are calibrated to use, if there's a slight cost, it's possible, but it wouldn't be the kind of thing to where, we're talking an order of magnitude difference for different colors on the sign.
Any other questions? No? Well,
Somebody should make a motion.
let's make a motion.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion to approve the
Second.
turtle. Is that correct? Okay,
Do you have a second?
and we have a second. All those in favor of the turtle?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Can I say, I would prefer a background that pops more like a bright yellow or something that it will stand out. I think the light blue background is not as prominent to signal it. So I would suggest that if it's not going to be cost prohibitive.
Okay, we'll have them do some designs. But the turtle.
Congratulations. Congratulations. We get a lot of great feedback on the turtle. Oh, yeah. Before we go on, I made a major sin for my position. I should have called on Chris Pimentel if he's there ready to talk about what a great job you did today and anything about this.
Jackie, no harm done. I am pinch hitting for Drew a bit here. And no, it was certainly, I was both furnished with quality briefing notes from the team and Jackie had her laser pointer to blind me when I said things that were radically incorrect, which was super helpful. But I think what we also learned is that there's a significant regional appetite for the network, and Culver City and some other surrounding cities came up afterward and wanted to know how they could be included. So I think that there are other regional allies we can call on as we look for funding tie in, as we say, the sort of neighborhood of neighborhoods to bring these networks together. So Jackie and Aaron and everyone, thank you very much for building such an easy package to discuss. And I think we've got a lot of legs on this.
Good job.
Great, thank you.
David said he'd get right on that. Okay. So, but thank you very much, Colin. We appreciate it. So.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, it's very exciting and I hope you all realize this is very, I hate very unique, but this is actually very unique to us. I'm wondering, out of respect for you having to get up in the morning, when are you planning to leave?
Oh, tonight, I would leave by 8 if you're not done.
Oh, okay.
So
we can
be
just,
done by age, trust me.
okay.
I run a tight ship.
So the next item we want to talk about is our SCAG REAP program, and that's Jonathan. Where are you, Jonathan? You want to talk about where we are on each of the, very briefly on each of the projects?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Jonathan from the Land Use and Housing Team. REAP 1 ADU acceleration project. This is a multifaceted study of ADUs in the South Bay. Participating cities, El Segundo, Gardena, Hawthorne, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, RPV, Rancho Palos Verdes, Redondo Beach, and Rolling Hills. So we have many tasks going on with our consultant. The big one, the ADU survey of the 8 cities. We've sent out a second round of postcards to 400 locations. We have an owner response rate of 9%. We have a renter response rate of about 4%. Could be better, but it's better than the statewide ADU survey that UC Berkeley did. So at least we surpassed that. We just sent out the third and final round on the 9th, and we've extended the deadline to December 2nd. And to increase the response rate, I will be doing some door knocks. I'll be going door to door to some random addresses in those cities to encourage people to fill out the survey and to get some additional data. That'll be done next week. The GIS layer and the housing policies comparison will be done by the end of the year. The city infrastructure task is just starting. That's where our consultant is learning from our public works directors. What is the impact of ADUs on our sewers, on our streets, on our water? So that task is now just starting underway. Second project, commercial redevelopment into housing, looking at what would it take to convert underperforming commercial into affordable housing. Participating cities are Carson, El Segundo, Hawthorne, Hermosa, Manhattan, and Redondo Beach. Major update there is our consultant has finished the phase 1 high-level analysis of some potential areas in our 6 cities, met with all of the cities, and the cities have identified 2 priority areas in each city. So now the consultant is moving into a phase 2 deeper dive at the parcel level, looking at what are the site conditions, who owns the property, what are the leases, what are the land uses, all kinds of things to say if this would be redeveloped, what is happening here, what are the effects? The redevelopment typologies, just so you're aware, we're looking at what our cities have asked us to look at is surface parking lots converted into housing, tear downs of existing commercial and rebuilds into housing, horizontal and vertical mixed use, preserving existing commercial, and finally, adaptive reuse of light industrial into housing. Third project and final for REAP 1 is the Housing Education Forum. The save the date flyer is in the board packet. This is a online virtual Zoom-based housing education forum for all of the South Bay. So all the cities in the county are participating because we'd like all of you to come. The first session launches January 12th. It is going to be a lunch and learn. So it's always going to be at lunchtime, so you can come kind of virtual brown bag. The audience is elected officials, commissioners, and staff from the city and the county. Topics for our housing education forum: housing markets, new state housing laws, South Bay housing goals, land use and transportation, gentrification, climate change, and much more. I can finally announce a confirmed speaker. We have Cosmont Companies as one of our confirmed speakers. They will be the first on January 12th talking about housing markets, and all of the remaining speakers are tentative yes. I just got to get them to formally say yes, but we basically have people lined up. We want to encourage the board and all your commissioners and your staff. Please come. This is going to be highly educational. It will be recorded and archived on Zoom, but it's great to have you there live for the discussion that will take place. So that's REAP 1. That's the one that's active right now. Any questions on REAP 1? All right. So REAP 1 is about planning. Now I'll transition briefly into REAP 2. This is coming up. This is about implementation. So we have, looks like 3 projects that we're developing applications on. The South Bay Housing Trust Fund, as many of you know, SB 1444 was approved by the governor. So we have that in place, a housing trust fund, but there's no funding for it yet. So we're looking at funding it through the beginning through REAP 2. That
It's the formation.
It's the formation, right? Right. So it's the beginning steps to what we have to get this in place. So we're looking at starting that off with REAP 2 funding. An extension of our current project, commercial redevelopment into housing. If we could take that to the next step of actually implementing and building upon that, that's another project that we're looking at developing an application for. And I think this week, we are also, as of this week, looking into the local travel network and some potential funding and partnerships through Metro for education and outreach to raise awareness and support the local travel network.
But that would be with Metro. Metro has its own pot of money.
Right.
So it wouldn't be coming out of our pot of money. We would hopefully get Metro to help fund that part of it.
The first 2 projects are earmarked, so we've got that money. We just got to submit the apps. The second one, I believe, is competitive. And then REAP, their applications are due in February 2023. Any questions on REAP 2?
Any questions?
Okay, legislative issues. We don't have a matrix because the session is over. We're going to be looking at new legislation that we might want to support. If you hear of any bills that you want us to be monitoring, please let us know. We're also going to be we're considering whether to ask our legislators to support legislation that we would sponsor. And we'll be bringing that back if we're going to have that. Probably in December, we'll bring back the concepts. I think we don't need to really have it firmed until new legislation isn't submitted until February. But I would like to, at least if we're going to ask our legislators, give them a heads up. We sent 2 letters that the board, the chair signed. One letter had to do with the land banking issue, which we sent to the Board of Supervisors and to Metro, asking them, and thank you, Councilwoman Derringer, for pushing this issue, which is so important, asking them that if they're going to land bank, they should land bank in unincorporated areas and or with the consent of cities, but not take away the local control of cities. And apparently at the Board of Supervisors, they tabled it, right?
Yeah, way back to Salisa's office.
Right, and
I didn't realize you were. And then today was the Metro meeting.
Right.
And so in essence, what happened on that, item B of the part of the motion recommendation by Supervisor Hahn was rescinded. So it's going to go, but the motion was approved as to item A, which was consistent with Metro's transit-oriented communities policy. Metro property may only be included in the LA County's land bank pilot program so long as it is done in coordination with local jurisdictions. So that was a win, and that was unanimous. And thank you to Jim Butts, Mayor Butts, who did the second on the motion, and thank you to Jackie for sending him an email reminding him about our position on this. And so there were, and Supervisor Hahn was through her staff member was grateful for the cities that did join in because apparently there was some misinformation that went to affordable housing groups, and that were saying that the Metro was trying to, or there was a motion to try to get Metro not to participate in affordable housing. It was very mischaracterized. So there were quite a few groups that were speaking in opposition to the motion. So it was good that we had some city participation to support it. But it's going to go not on consent. It's going to go to the full board on December 1st in Metro. So we need to get people queued up to speak.
Yeah, so it stopped at the county, but it's going to Metro at December 1st.
Right.
So when you say it stopped at the county, what does that mean? Does that mean?
Tabled.
You got a table.
Table. So December 1st, they're going to reconsider it?
Metro is going to hear today was a committee recommendation.
Okay.
And Metro is going to hear the committee recommendation on December 1st.
We were very interested in that, but unfortunately, our council doesn't meet until next week. And so I sent a letter in supporting your letter, but my letter got in too late. because they had stopped, they had,
Supervisor Mitchell knew about it.
oh, did she?
Yeah, because I got a call from them and they did say they had a letter, so.
Okay, but I'm still wondering now, is it still timely for us to get the full council to approve a letter
Yes.
for next week?
Well, to
Meet next
Metro
week.
and then to the county, because county is going to bring it back. It's just that Supervisor Solis made reference during the meeting that she had gotten some information from Supervisor Han's office and wanted some time to work on the information she got, and they're going to bring it back.
So should the letter go to both the county and Metro?
Well, yeah, to both boards. And
Right, okay.
The second letter that we sent just this week went to the Public Utilities Commission, because you might have read in the LA Times that the solar incentive issue has come back. And I did have, I think I mentioned to you last time, I had a panel of people that were ready to talk about the solar incentive issues, but we have to have a special meeting because it's very complicated. And the new position came out, the new proposed decision came out November 10th. And there's a possibility it's actually can be on the CPUC agenda for December 15th for action. So we took, John Cruikshank agreed, we took the liberty of sending a letter saying that we once sent a letter saying they weren't leaving enough time. And now they're clearly not leaving enough time because there's Thanksgiving, there's the holidays, and how can you put something out like this on November 10th and have it on an action agenda December 15th? So that's all our letter said. And if they don't take action December 15th, we can discuss whether we want to have a special meeting, but it wouldn't be till January. So that's where we are with that. And then the next thing would be our transportation. I'm skipping around. Oh, the next thing on the agenda is the Finance Committee. Finance Committee, we've now, for those of you that, we're still accepting members, but for those of you that are at all interested, we have decided we probably can get the business of the Finance Committee done in 3 meetings. So we picked December 15th, which is the third Thursday, I think, right, at 5 o'clock. And so the third Thursday, December 15th, January, whatever that is, and February, whatever that is. And those are the 3 meetings we're going to have. We've invited a couple of city managers, and we will be sending out a notice on the Finance Committee the week before the meeting. We're going to go over, there's a couple of things we're going to go over. The special assessment that we have, our dues, our resources, and then we've gotten suggestions from at least one board member that there are things we could actually buy as an organization, data research things that all the cities could share that might be cheaper if we bought it and made it available to our cities, but we can't afford to do that because it's not in our structure. So we're going to talk about whether, with the new technology and other things, are there things that we really should consider having in our dues so that we can make it available to our members. So those are some of the things the Finance Committee is going to do. And that's just really an announcement. Next meeting.
I have a question, Jack.
I just want to clarify on the land bank. Could I do that? I got, because it was pulled, it wasn't tabled.
Oh,
So it was pulled and the supervisor wanted introduce amendments to make sure that, oh, sorry, let me read it. So could I do that? So just to clarify. So he's still messaging me right now. So the amendment wanted to anchor in getting the guidelines first before allocating any of the deployment funds. That was our amendment that later Supervisor Hidlo Solis pulled the bill or pulled the motion out. So it's pulled, it's not tabled. It could still be reintroduced by,
but there's no date.
there's no date.
The one thing I know we're going backwards and I'm sorry, but the one thing I said, I talked to Supervisor Mitchell's office and I talked to somebody in Supervisor Han's office. And I said, although it might not seem like it's actually the same thing, to me, it's the same thing. And that is the fact that SB 679 is passed, which is the Regional Housing Trust. And that Regional Housing Trust is going to be formed and it's going to have all the cities are going to have representatives at the table. For example, our COG will have a seat on that board. And it was upsetting to me that the county would take these actions to do something with their affordable housing budget and with land banking without bringing all of us to the table, which is going to happen as early as January, And so I said, that's not a way to start an agency in good faith. And I said, I don't know if anybody had brought that up, but that was something I did say to them, and you might want to throw in your letters if you're going to do a letter. I just think, you know, it was almost like they wanted to spend all the money down before, or take all the action before they put us at the table. I thought it was wrong. So that was also part of what we talked about. But anyway, okay, just backwards and go forward again. Okay, going forwards again, now we're at Ronson with homeless services issues.
All right, so the first thing is, there it is, Hawthorne. I'm very excited to announce that they are going to have a groundbreaking ceremony for their new tiny home facility. That's going to be 12 pallet shelters. That is going to happen. That this groundbreaking ceremony is going to happen November 30th at 10 a.m. So it's great. This will be the third one now in the South Bay. The first one being Redondo Beach, and the second one being Torrance. So after it's all said and done, it's going to look like this. So that's the Torrance one. That's Supervisor Hahn. So that's how it's going to look like when it's all said and done. So the groundbreaking is coming up November 30th. Wanted to share that. Another thing that's happening, I hope I'm not stealing anyone's thunder from Supervisor Mitchell, but they opened a safe landing site. That's what it's called. It's 176 units in West Athens. So over by the 105 North. This is the grand opening that happened November 2nd. And they have 176 beds. This is the drop-in area, which is about 30 beds. And basically, you know, this is one of the few true kind of no wrong door situations where if you're an individual, a couple, you know, you can come in here and get rid of care, get some relief off the streets. And so there's 36 beds for that. There's also beds for, like I said, individuals, interim beds. This is the kind of a locker situation where they can store belongings safely. This is the kind of the cubicle situation for couples. This is a congregate type of shelter, and these are typically how they look like. You know, they're very similar to the original that are being built in LA City, that have been built in LA City. So this is opening up this month. I think they still need to pass some inspections, but that's the plan. 176 beds. And again, people can drop in, and it's being run by Exodus Recovery. So big thanks to Supervisor Mitchell's office for spearheading this. This is really interesting. You can bring pets, and this is the pet kennel that's on the property.
It looks like a jail.
This is it's like the cafeteria. You can see that nice mural. Lived experience artists. And it is a fairly large facility. Here's a map of it. So there's 5 buildings, administrative building, and you have a building for couples, women, men. So it's quite a good space. So wanted to share. And two more things. One is the winter shelters are opening up. They're doing it very different this year. We used to have a winter shelter at Laundry Park, but they're not doing that this year. What they're doing instead is when there's inclement weather, like when it's raining outside, and you know someone that needs shelter, you have to call 211. What they'll then do is give you a motel voucher and put you in a motel. So that's what they're doing this year. So when there's inclement weather, we'll get notified and we'll send it out. And if you have constituents that are in need of shelter, you have to dial 211 and they'll get you a motel voucher to assist the situation. So that's that. And then
Ronson and the West Adams one, are children allowed?
No, thanks. That's the only, the families they don't have room for families. So it's really just couples, man and woman.
Do they have wraparound services?
Yeah, so there's nurses, there's substance use, mental health services there. And then wanted to end on a really big note. So Colleen just passed the South Bay Watch Out, this is the latest version of the newsletter. And I wanted just to share that story since that's my report box here. A few months ago, he sent me an email about this lady that was having a lot of difficulty. She was a teacher that got laid off in the pandemic. She was living with her two parents, the mother who is bedbound because of disability. She was in a 4-bedroom house and renting it, but because of her layoff, she became severely late on her payments and owed tens of thousands of dollars to her landlord. She could not downsize because she didn't have a job, so no new landlord would accept her. And so she was in a bind. She was basically on the verge of being homeless because she was going to be evicted. And so we got the email from Horvath. We worked with Lila Amira, the Beyond the Beach housing navigator. And so we created a plan for her, a housing plan. What we would do is, through our home sharing program, find her a roommate so she could sustain rent going forward. She got a job with Manhattan Beach Unified, actually, as a substitute teacher. And so that helped with the income. And in terms of the back rent, she applied for the state Housing is Key program that paid for some of the back rent. And then we would kind of catch her up on the current rent. And so that was the housing plan. And we had a call with property manager to make sure that they were on board with this plan. And they were. They were actually really nice, and they agreed to it. And sometimes that's rare too, like finding a property manager that's willing to work with you. So they did. So through our client aid funds and through home sharing, we were able to get her stabilized and housed, and she is no longer at risk of being homelessness. In addition, one other thing came out of it is that in her attempts to find help, she contacted a reverend who she introduced me to. And that reverend actually introduced me to a house in Carson that we are now using to for 8 beds to house people that are experiencing homelessness. So through this one case, we were able to not only help her, but then find 8 other beds and another to help people. So just wanted to share that as well. And this happens every week too. It's not just this one case. So Laura and I are sometimes very spoiled that we get to hear these inspirational stories on a weekly basis. And Laura, do you want to talk about the senior services?
Well, I just wanted to say Lila was just here. She just came in. She had a difficult, somebody took very ill at the pallet shelter because she wanted to meet everybody. Hopefully most of you saw that welcome home kit we put together, which is a sample of when somebody gets housed. Well, she stopped here because we had 2 checks for her, one for a couple and one for another person to help with their first month's rent. Both of them just got housed. She took that welcome home kit with her, and she's taking it to the couple that's getting housed in a couple of days, and she'll take a picture there. So she's amazing. I call her the homelessness whisperer, what she does.
Before you move on, I just want to mention that yesterday the city managers met and they had a panel on the care courts and talking about mental health and homelessness. Ronson was there. There was somebody from the governor's office and the county and the county representatives were there. It's a very, very good panel. They're very, I think the city managers are very engaged in this, trying to find out how we can work together to do better. Redondo Beach is a star, and the home court and everything was discussed. And they probably will invite somebody next month, they said, to continue this discussion. So you should know that that's happening also with the city managers.
Senior services, the next, oh, I'm sorry, didn't see that.
No, that's okay. I just want to say, like, this example, this story is like I think Ronson made a good point. This is happening all the time. And one of the things I think we've tried to really focus on over the years is how can we do more in preventative measures, right? And so, but I think we really have to throw out kudos to Ronson and the whole team. It doesn't, like, this is not an easy lift. It really is a team effort between cities and the COG. And what the COG has been able to do with the innovation funds is be able to create scenarios like this one where they kind of fall into a void in a sense. And so with these funds, being able to help them get over a hump. This woman also has a mother who needed like full-time care in a nursing home. So like it was really, really complicated. So every city should know that the resources are here and that these guys, along with your own, city teams are really doing a heavy lift constantly.
Thank you for that. And there's no two cases that are the same, which just adds to the complexity of this. So on senior services, which Britt leads all of our meetings so well. Our next meeting, we're going to have a presentation on what you saw on the local travel network. We're going to tie it into the AARP. Each year has community challenge grants. And so we're going to tie that into presenting to the cities ideas from last year's grants on projects related to mobility. And so it's kind of a good tie-in that those grants are supposed to start next April. So if we present ideas now, maybe it'll give the cities plenty of time to put some ideas together and we'll see if we can help them along. That's it.
Then Steve Lance is going to do the transportation report while Steve is getting up. I just wanted to mention that we sent a letter, another letter we sent was to request that the fare policy changes be postponed because they were going to do a lot of fare changes. And I think that's with minimal public input again. One of the things Metro's going to get, 4 or 5 new board members because the mayor appoints 4 people. So right off the bat, the whole board's going to change. So I think they wanted to do a lot of stuff in December, but it's sort of stupid to change fares in December. That's a huge thing. And I guess they didn't postpone it, didn't they?
They did not postpone the actual implementation. They haven't scheduled it yet.
Oh, they haven't. Okay, so it's not scheduled.
It's not going to happen in December. They're just starting to talk about what their options are.
Okay, well, that was probably because of our letter, I'm sure.
Okay. Yes.
Go ahead.
Transportation Committee at the COG here had a discussion about the upcoming deadline, which you all need to remind yourself. If you have a current Measure M or R project and you need additional money for that project, the deadline to request that is December 1st. And you need to do that simply by sending a memo, having your public works, or no, your city manager has to send us a memo or an email that says, here is the new scope that we need, that we're adding, or here is the justification based on rising costs of materials or labor. And here's our request for funding. That goes to David. Then the other deadline is January 15th. That's for applications for a new project. If you have a new project that you want to fund through Measure M, you need to apply for it by January 15th, Jackie. Okay? You have to be fair to everybody. So we were talking about the fact that we need an application for Measure M and the projects that get funded by Measure M. But if you want to get it funded in fiscal year 23-24, you need to get that in by the 15th of January, okay? The other thing that we discussed, we had a presentation that had been promised a couple of months ago from the Gateway Cities COG on the Long Beach to East LA corridor. You know it probably as the I-710 corridor project. Some months ago, the Gateway COG decided they were no longer going to do a traditional 710 project. And instead they were going to focus on cleaning up the trucks and working on community impacts. And they have a $50 million proposal they're working up to spend the money within the corridor from East LA to Long Beach to improve to reduce the impacts on the surrounding neighborhoods rather than doing a big mobility improvement. So it's clean trucks and community mitigation. I think that's it from the transportation.
Steve, this is Chris. Can I expound on that just for a moment? I don't want to undersell what a significant change that is. I mean, moving to 710 from a focus of the movement of goods and people to a community redevelopment effort is a significant change. And that EIR, as they presented, dates from 2016. So the flow of trucks that they're basing this upon is data that does not accurately represent the workflow coming out of those ports, and the spillover regionally, and not so much specific to us, I don't think, in the big broad strokes, but regionally, the impacts of that change for them, that's really significant. And I think that's something that it's worth us as a region keeping a close eye on, because the spillover effects are, if we had the 605, I can't imagine what that will look like when those trucks are pushed that direction.
So the response at our COG, at the meeting, was that we needed to focus on the broader movement of goods from the ports to the Inland Empire, basically on all of the different freeway routes that cross and that intersect. And that we think that the 110 freeway will experience additional volume because they're not addressing it in the 710. And when that 110 freeway starts to add more and more traffic, it moves up toward downtown and then moves out through the San Gabriel Valley. So Jackie was talking about having a separate effort from their East LA to the port project that looks at the broader, bigger context of how do we move goods and people through the southeastern part of our county. So we'll be working on that, I suspect, with the Gateway COG perhaps, and West Side and others, the downtown LA COG. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Want me to move on? to
Yeah,
the
Metro.
Metro Board? Metro had a busy day. They covered 48 items. I'm not going to talk about all 48. You don't have to. It's going to be ugly, I can tell you. One of the things, I'm going to give you 4 or 5 different items, but they adopted what's called a prioritized 2028 games mobility project list. That project list started at 300 projects. They sorted it to see what could actually get done by 2028 without regard to money. And they decided that it's actually 45 projects. So they cut the list down. Their next process is to sort looking for money. Turns out I'm going to read this. They're on the current $10.9 billion list, their funding gap is $9.7 billion. Okay, they basically, this is a hope and dream wish still, obviously, and they have to go find the money. But that list includes the Inglewood Transit Connector Project and the Sentinella Grade Separation Project. And the Inglewood Transit Connector Project is $1.4 billion with a $1 billion gap. And the Sentinella Grade Separation is $225 million with only a $75 million gap. So there's a lot of work to be done as we try and get ready for the Olympics, and Metro is just, the big beast is just starting to wake up. We are going to be in a position where we're going to have to compete with other projects for this funding, and Metro's going to go after state and federal funds under the Olympic banner. We'll see where they get, how they get there. There's also a transit-oriented communities economic development program and investment fund. This creates a 2-year pilot program for businesses within a half-mile radius of the recently completed K line, Crenshaw LAX line. So that line goes through our parts of our South Bay, and Inglewood, of course, is going to be looking to see if they can get some of that money. Next. There's also what's called a land bank
We discussed that.
pilot motion.
That was the one that we just did with the, yeah.
Okay, we're done. Thank you, B, for going to the meeting.
Sure. Thank you.
Is that it?
I think that's it.
I think that, oh, one other announcement. Metro is returning to 7 million revenue service hours. That's the amount of service that they were providing before the pandemic. They didn't talk about how they would pay for it, but they decided today to go back to, with the December service change, this next month, they're going to go back to the amount of transit service they were operating before the
And
pandemic.
what's the ridership?
And the ridership will come back next month with an estimate of cost and ridership.
But in the South Bay, I think we said at the Transportation Committee, wasn't it that the ridership is like 3/4?
Yeah, no, today
Yeah,
it's
that's what I'm
3/4,
saying,
but
it's
when you go,
3/4.
when you add in the more frequent service and you tie it to their next gen program, the board asked them today, how many riders is that going to get you? And they said, well, we'll get back to you on that. But they still approved the program to go forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Kim with the South Bay Environmental Services Center.
Yes, so a couple of things. We're still working on the equipment inventory that we're going out to each of the cities and cataloging all of the inventory that uses energy at those facilities so that we can come up with a master list and hopefully use it to request more funding for replacement for cities and also maybe potentially joint purchases. So we're really excited about that. We have the Civic Spark Fellow that's going out along with Sean, who was our past Civic Spark Fellow. And we're going to work with a volunteer. So that's very exciting. Get some volunteers trained as well. So that's one thing. The other thing is we are combining it with some of the work with West Basin. And West Basin is interested in what they call non-functional turf. And so when we go out into the field, we're going to try to help identify areas that could be replaced for water saving. So that's happening. And then also, we just, I don't know, Jackie, you probably didn't see it yet. We just received our funding estimates for the SoCal Ren. And so they're coming in at what they came in last time. So we're not losing any funding. And so that's exciting. And we're working with them also on 2024 funding. And so for 2024, one of the things that we had put in was to hopefully provide services for the California Green Business Certification Program. I'd love to be able to fund it for all the cities. And so that would be helping businesses in your community get certified as like green businesses. And so, and that includes like waste, water, energy, even transportation. And so if we can get that funding starting in 2024 from the CPUC, maybe we can help fund that program for the cities. And then also, we've been looking at the Energy Star Award program, and this is an energy efficiency award program that's done by the state, and it's connected to the Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And the idea is that you have really efficient buildings. And so we're going to see if we can set cities up over the next like few months so that around this time next year, we can help them submit applications, and then we can bring in some awards for your cities. And then the last thing is just to let you know that the last rain barrel giveaway, so maybe we'll have rain in the next week, because that happens when we have the rain barrel giveaways, is this Saturday.
What's this rain word?
Yes. And so that's this Saturday in the city of El Segundo, but from the last rain barrel event, when we had the rain, just a few days after that, we had part of that program is that residents send in pictures of their rain barrel actually being used. And we even had people sending in films of just the water just pouring down into the rain barrels. And so it is known, it's certified, it's fact that if we give out rain barrels, we will get rain. So,
Right.
Any questions?
There's a lot of work is going on there. So the next item is the South Bay Fiber Network. And if I'm beginning to learn why people become libertarians, because sometimes government just really gets you down. As you all know, we applied for a grant from the Public Utilities Commission. They saved $50 million for broadband grants, mostly for disadvantaged communities, but for needs assessments and to really extend our network. So we worked really hard. We even hired a grant writer, and we put in for $495,000. Each grant was capped at $500,000. We put in for a grant of $500,000 to do an assessment in our cities and work with some of our disadvantaged areas. And in advance of that, we had a couple of meetings. Those meetings were for your city staff, but we had PUC representatives. PUC came, they came to Gateway, they came to San Gabriel Valley. We all put in these grants. So we were told to put in our grant as early as possible because it was going to be first come, first served, and they thought that people would oversubscribe. We put it in August, right away, got it done. And after a while, sometime in September or October, all of the August grants were approved except for the councils of governments. None of them were approved. And what's fascinating about that is that Northern California came in as cities. Southern California, LA County works in councils of governments. So 74 cities did not get any grant, but Northern California got all kinds of money. And only 23 million was spent. So there's still money. But we're wondering what is going on, right? They were at our meetings, the whole business. So September comes and they start giving out September money and we don't hear anything. And so LA Deal, which is the LAEDC, is supposed to be our spokesperson. We have this meeting and we say, what's going on here? And we find out that they decided somewhere in the bowels of the PUC that COGs are not eligible. But they didn't, but they were at all of our meetings and they told us to apply. And what they figured is that we were like MPOs, which is what SCAG is. And so they wouldn't give us the money. So we did our own investigating. And what we found out is that the staff, somewhere in the staff, they realized this was a problem. They had reserved the money. So we knew that at least we were going to get the money if they reserved it for us. And anyway, the end of the story is that as of yesterday, Aaron found out, and then today it was validated, or the PUC said it, that next week we will get the notice to the applications and it's all going through. But the stupid part, I mean, the thing that makes you just crazy is the purpose of this grant was a planning grant, because in the spring, the federal government's coming out with an implementation grant. And we were all supposed to be getting ready for that. So all of our cities were being disadvantaged because we can't get started because we don't have the grant. And so, you know, at some point you just want to go crazy and shake your head. But it looks like next week we're going to get this very big grant and get even busier. And so we're very excited about that. That's the end of the story. We're very excited about it. The other thing is we're working on wireless still, and Barry is being fantastic about helping us maybe find some wireless in Lomita. Get that done, which would help our businesses. And Carson possibly, we've actually, Torrance has gone so slowly that we've actually told them if they're not going to do it within the next month or so, we're moving on to somebody else. So this is something that what we're talking about is wireless that helps businesses that need fractionalized service. And we've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and we want to help other communities that are ready to do this. So we're moving that along. And so hopefully we're going to have a lot of work and a lot of new information on broadband for you in the next couple of months. Then we go to the General Assembly, and I don't know, do you want us to talk anything about? David has the distinguished honor of being in charge of the program of the General Assembly and the logistics. So David.
Yeah, so we're still working on it, but the general concept will be kind of competing state priorities. The state has a lot of mandates and ideas, and oftentimes they seem at odds. For example, this energy issue. They have no more gas cars after 2035.
Here's what I found.
Siri's talking to us.
No more gas cars.
At the same time, the grid is going to handle it. AC use is increasing. In our last heat wave a couple months ago, everything almost fell apart. People were told not to charge their cars. And so the general concept will be kind of a couple competing state issues and then some things that we're doing locally that might help address those issues. And so we're still finding speakers. We have a couple interesting ones that we're working on. But as things get kind of confirmed, we'll let you guys know. And as always, if you have sponsorships ideas, let us know.
Yeah, it's coming.
And the photo contest.
Oh, and then the photo contest is in the newsletter. We're going to have a photo contest again this year. Colleen, do you want to talk about the photo contest?
Sure. Yes, it kicks off, thank you, January 1st. And last year we got so many coastal shots, which were great, but we're looking for a variety this year. So this year our call is for local landmarks within cities. So we're hoping to get some nice artistic, creative shots of local landmarks. And the deadline for receiving those is February 10th. So once again, it kicks off January 1st. So we hope to get lots of entries again this year. Oh, and we will be announcing the winner at the General Assembly. And last year we had like a vote at the General Assembly among our attendees to pick the winner. So we're not really sure if we're going to do it the exact same way, but we might.
We've been talking about possibly doing it when you register, you can vote at that time, so that by the time we get to the General Assembly, everybody has seen the pictures and then they can, but it will have to be, I mean.
Announce it or something.
Yeah, well, we're trying to figure this out, so.
And I think the board it was involved in also selecting, like.
Yeah, the top 10. I think we just like, the board selects the top 10 and then we go to the. Okay, well, now we come to the part of the program, which is sad.
But can we let Jeff talk?
No, well, I thought Jeff would talk after that because agency
okay.
reports, yeah, okay. So this is a sad part of the program because we, although we're going to get a lot of new board members, I would suspect we're losing several board members, and I'll go in order, in reverse order, I guess. For those of you that don't know it, the city of El Segundo has one delegate, but every one of their council members is an alternate. So we are losing alternate Scott Nickel, who did not run for reelection, and he will be leaving as an alternate to our board. In the city of Los Angeles, Joe Buscaino and Mike Bonin. Mike Bonin is the alternate to the COG. And so the two of them will be leaving. And for those of you that were here before, we're very excited that Tim McCosker, the councilman-elect, seems to be very, very strong proponent of the COG. So that was great. In Rolling Hills Estates, Steve Zuckerman will be leaving after many, many years. And so we'll miss Steve and his very, very perceptive and wise counsel. In Manhattan Beach, we're very sad to see Hildy Stern will be leaving, and Hildy's here. So wish you well, Hildy, and hope that you stay in touch. In Hermosa Beach, Stacy Armato is leaving, and she is not here today, but Stacy will no longer be on the council. And then our former chair and our Hawthorne council member, Olivia Valentine.
Oh.
And for, although so many people are leaving, when we have a former chair, we have what tradition, that's what I'm trying to say. We have a tradition at the COG that the COG itself, I don't know, Rodney, if you want to do this, the COG gives a former chair a pen and pencil set. Oh my. From the COG, they're only for special gifts.
We don't want to give this to you.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Oh, ooh, beautiful.
When you write those checks, you do.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Thank you.
But you don't have to write any checks because we also got you personally a gift certificate.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you
Just
so
to
much.
thank you for your service.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Speech.
It's been such a pleasure. I can't believe how fast it's gone. 11 years passed really quickly, you know, and so here we are. But I have so appreciated the warm, family-like atmosphere of the COG. And we got so much done in so many different areas. The COG is so creative, thanks to Jackie, thanks to all of us here who really work well together because we all believe in regionalism. We all believe in getting the best product by all working together. We're all working for our own cities, but we're also working for the region as well. So it's been a joy. It's been a lot of hard work, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you all so much for all of your good company and all of the wonderful times we've had and the tough times too. Thank you.
Okay.
Britt?
Well,
you're the only one.
Oh, well, I'm the only one that brought you a certificate, but
my.
on behalf of my colleague and I, Steve Zuckerman, and our entire council, we are pleased to present you with a certificate commemorating your not only service to Hawthorne, but to us here at the COG. And I have just enjoyed so much working with you. You've been a real inspiration to me and a real role model. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think now we're ready for Jeff.
Okay. Take it away.
Well, it's hard to follow that. I'll also echo the sentiments of all the departing board members. You're always free to give me a call if you never need any help from Cal Cities. I just wanted to make mention of something that some of you may not be aware. I alerted the city managers, city clerks to this. So Cal Cities identified a bill, SB 1439, which was signed into law this year by the governor. It extends the Levine Act, which has to do with campaign contributions, to council members. This bill is obviously going to be taking effect on January the 1st, but part of the provisions of the bill include a year look back for the past 12 months. Cal Cities wrote a letter to the FPPC asking them to rule if, although this law is not in effect yet, whether it would impact campaign contributions that are received during the 2022 campaign cycle. Today, the FPPC did rule that it would not include the 2022 campaign cycle. So that's some very good news. It's not totally final until their next meeting. They have agreed to have a special December meeting just for this issue. So we anticipate that will be formally adopted at their December meeting. But I just wanted to make mention of that because it was something that certainly concerned us, considering it isn't quite a law yet, but you might be subject to it once it becomes a law in January. But thankfully, it looks like the FPPC is agreeing with us on that one. So I just wanted to make mention of that for anyone who did run for office this year. And then lastly, so it's not an update from Cal Cities unless you get a little doom and gloom. I just wanted to mention that the budget deficit was now predicted to be $25 billion next year on the state level. So it's something that we're going to be working on. We didn't get all of our budget asks this year, so we're really going to be hounding the state to make sure that they're getting that surplus.
Made me fun. They had that.
That's all I have. Thank you for everyone.
Thanks, Jeff.
We're just in.
Yeah.
As an email.
Okay, anybody have announcements? I have a quick one. So Drew and the city of El Segundo and the city of Gardena came in first place in the Eddie Awards.
Oh.
Segundo got under 60,000.
Oh, thank you.
So the South Bay is well represented.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great. Anybody else? Oh. Okay, so.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
I wanted to actually give a shout out. I just remembered this. But the guy on the picture, Ron, who was the roommate,
yes,
he actually was introduced to us by Britt. I just remember that. So it really does take a village, but I guess second from you, seeking home or something, and we connect. Now they're.
When will you know?
That's great.
Thank you. All right, everybody stay warm. We stand adjourned.
Bye. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, where'd you find it?